So welcome everybody to the Mossburn Distillers and Torabhaig Discovery Tasting, as we've named it. It is the first one of the new season of whiskey tastings that Moog is organizing. There will be a number of others coming in the next few months. The ones that are planned and communicated already is the 13th of September. We'll have a masterclass of cachaça with Stan Heers. So if you like your Brazilian spirits, that will be one to watch out for and to join in with. To join in. If you're a member of a whiskey club, we're doing an inter-club tasting on the 11th of December, where you can join in with your club as a whole, which should be fun. This is with Bert Bruneel from Asta Morris, Mark Dermul from MM Malts, and Jürgen Vromas from the Whiskey Mercenary. So we'll have a little nice lineup for that. And for those of you that didn't see the message, we should have had a festival, the Moog Festival, in October. We have decided to postpone that once more to the month of March next year, 25th and 26th of March, just because we want to be able to organize our festival in the way we want to organize it and not have too many concerns. You know why. So the festival will be in March of next year. For those of you that don't know Moog, www.moog.be, our Facebook page, and you will be in touch, or we'll be kept in touch. We'll keep in touch about every event that we'll be organizing. There's a couple of really nice tastings that are getting into shape for this this fall season. So keep an eye out for those. As soon as they're completely set, we'll let you know about those. An important thing is today, and then I'm going to give the word to Bruce to host the tasting. What I like to do in these tastings is make a word cloud with your tasting notes. So if you could go to use your phone or a second screen or whatever you want, and go to www.menti.com. You'll get on the website of Mentimeter. They'll ask you for an 8-digit code, and I'll put that in the chat for you guys. And you just have to put in that code, and then every time we're tasting a whiskey, you can just fill in your tasting notes there, and they will be added to the presentation of the Mentimeter. And then you'll see a word cloud of tasting notes appearing, which are the tasting notes of you guys, of our group here tonight, which is nice as a visual aid in what we're tasting. So I'll put that code and the website in the chat for everybody to see. Would be really nice if you could join in, because the more the merrier, of course. There you go. That's the code in the chat for you and the website link. And then in the end, all the way at the end of the tasting, I'll give you a link to our website too. For anybody that wants to order one or more of these bottles, you can do that through our website, and we'll make sure that these bottles get to you. All the prices, etc., will be disclosed at that moment too, so as not to interfere with what you're tasting. That being said, that was a long introduction. I'm going to introduce you to our special guest for tonight, Mr. Bruce Perry. He is the global brand manager for Mossburn Distillers and Blenders. And as such, he's the perfect man to guide you through what this independent bottler is doing, and also what they're doing with their new distillery, very new distillery, Torabhaig. So yeah, Bruce, take it away. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening to everybody. I wish I could do this in Dutch for you, but I'm afraid I can't. So we will speak with English. Mossburn Distillers, yes, I think that, let me just get control of the screen there. We are owners and operators of distilleries. We are blenders, and we are independent bottlers, and you're going to have a little look at a good cross-section of that this evening. We've also got a blended malt in the pipeline called Castule Hamouche, or Castle Camas in English, and that's for later on. We have a distillery in the lowlands of Scotland as well. It's called the Reivers Distillery, and that is just on the border with England, really, not very far away at all from the border with England. And we're going to have a lot of fun down there. It's going to be a little bit more irreverent. We're going to make some rye whiskey, and we're going to have a lot of fun there. And of course, we have the distillery at Torabhaig on the Isle of Skye. So that is a very, very brief introduction to who we are, what we do. And as Jeroen rightly pointed out, the distillery at Torabhaig is very, very new indeed. So the first thing I really thought we would start off with is telling you about independent bottlers. Now, I put this picture in here, not because it's a pretty picture I found online, but because I think it highlights to people that this isn't anything new, independent bottling. In fact, if anything, independent bottling was the original way. When distilleries first started up, they didn't have bottling lines and marketing departments and labeling departments. They just made whiskey and put it in a barrel, and then they sold it. Quite often, the barrels they would get would actually come from the wine merchants that they sold the whiskey to, because the wine merchants had bought wine from Jerez de la Frontera in Spain, for example, or wherever, and then this sherry barrel would arrive at the wine merchants who would sell the sherry. Barrel's now empty, give it to the distillery puts whiskey in it and sells the thing back, and so on and so forth. And so this is really, in many respects, a cornerstone of the industry. Back in the day, a lot of people who ran wine merchants or grocers or what have you really developed in their own reputation, their own big name, and we know some of those names today. So the most important thing at a whiskey tasting is to get whiskey in your glass. And so I think we should do that now. I'm going to stop sharing to allow the word cloud to take over, and then I'll take back over again. Yeah. So the word cloud, over to you, Maestro. And I've got some Royal Brackler. Hopefully you have got some Royal Brackler.
They should all have received their samples. So and if you have logged into the Mentimeter now, so whatever your tasting notes are, you can put them in. Let's do them in Dutch or English. I don't really mind. We'll translate for Bruce if it's in Dutch. But just put in anything you are experiencing in the nose, in the mouth, anything you can find in there, and we'll shortly be seeing these popping up in on the screen that you're seeing now. I'm actually pretty happy because, as I told Bruce just before we started, my nose is completely stuffed. I have this kind of allergy thing going on, and I couldn't taste anything, but it's starting to clear up, so I can join in with the tasting too.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So I always like to allow people to make their own minds up. I think the power of suggestion is very, very powerful. So I will give you some tasting notes and so on and so forth afterwards. But let's start off with yourself. So I'll give you a minute or two of silence, which is always difficult from my side because I feel like I'm supposed to talk. And then I will let you have a little look in peace and quiet.
Yeah, the thing is also you'll see on the Mentimeter that you have about 10 spots that you can fill in. You can fill in 3, and then you can push verzenden, send, and they will appear. And then later on, if you have more, you can still add them, and they will keep on adding. Yeah, there you go. There's the first ones appearing. So the way this works is this is a word cloud. So if 2 people put in the same word, that word will start appearing bigger on the screen. So any of these that you're seeing right now, if for example 7 people put in honey, you'll see honey growing bigger. You see honey is growing bigger than the other words right now. So that's how it works basically, and I like it. It gives a little bit of a visual on what you're thinking about the whiskey. So
honey gets the biggest comment, does it? So let's have a look and see. So I'll take back over now, Jeroen.
Perfect.
This was, yeah. So
well, I'll stop sharing. You can share your screen, and then we'll go back to this screen afterwards.
No problem.
Oh, there you go.
I took over.
That's perfect.
But you can do the same. You can retaliate if you want to.
I'll leave you to it. It's perfect.
So we had some barley sugar and unripe green fruit on the note, cucumber and green fruit reminiscent of apples and melons. Long, clean finish with grassy overtones. I was tasting it myself there, and I saw a couple of comments coming in. I saw hay and I saw honey. By the way, thank you very much for writing it in English. I just realized that. That's appreciated. And I thought, yes, I get that. And the barley sugar honey thing is a very close run thing. So that's very interesting. But it is a very, very fruity whiskey. Everybody's coming up with fruit. It's a wonderful little distillery. And there are so many of these in Scotland where the company that owns them, for example, uses what they make for their blends. And their blend is a very, very big business vehicle. And they need these wonderful whiskies for those blends. And so that all of them are not marketed in a big way of single malts. This is one of them, really. It's very, very valuable as blending material, so it doesn't get the publicity for a single malt. And this is one of the great reasons for coming to an independent bottler, because they're happy to do the smaller quantities, and they're marketing their own name, so they can bring many, many different distilleries to the market that you might otherwise find very, very difficult to find indeed. And so, and for me, this is be ashamed to miss out on something like this. I really, really like it. I think it's very, very well balanced, very, very well made, very good fruity characteristics, and we're very happy to show it in an ASB. If you have a look at the detail here on the label, sorry, in a hogshead, excuse me, that you can see here. Of looking at a previous incarnation, you've got you're not masking it with anything, and it allows you to see really what the distillery actually did make. And this label also came about because when we started doing these independent bottlings, we had already acquired the land and the old cattle steading that was to become the distillery at Torabhaig. And so when we started with this, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, so what are we going to do? How do we want to portray ourselves in the marketplace? What sort of people are we going to be? And we knew deep down inside that we were whiskey fans making whiskey for whiskey fans. We know that we always like to get as much information as possible. And I think that was what we really showed here. There's no pretty pictures here of hills and glens and
glens and lochs and
exactly. This is information. So you've got on here. Let me get a pointer up and running.
There's not even a deer on there.
Nothing at all. No, you can find those in Scotland, but
yeah,
not on our labels. So we tell you the barrel type here. We tell you the year of distillation, the bottling date, obviously the legal stuff. But we wanted to try and be transparently, to give information and to be transparent about it. And I suppose integrity is the better word.
I'll just give that information because I think the picture on the screen is quite small for people to read. So it's bottled at 46%. It's distilled in 2008, bottled in 2018. So it's 10-year-old. And then it's in a hogshead barrel. So there you go. That's the information that's on there.
Good. So, by the way, because there's so few of us, the chat box, use it if you want to, but equally, if you just want to talk to me, feel free, demute yourself and interrupt. It's not a problem. But I think what we will do now is let's get your word cloud back up.
Yep,
We'll
I'll put that up there.
The next one.
There you go. So I see that a lot of people have added more tasting notes. So that's pretty nice to see. As Bruce said, lots of fruit there: peaches, melon, apples, apple. Yeah, green apple. So lots of apple.
Yes.
Actually, that's pretty good. A drop. That's licorice. I can also see toffee, grassiness. Yeah, vanilla.
Yes,
sweet.
no, the vanilla, the hay, I definitely get. The green apple, yes. The melon, the apples. I understand the peaches. There is a certain something there that is reminiscent of that. But apple and honey are quite big letters there. So
yeah, and as you can see, there's apples, there's apple, and there's green apples. So if you put them together into apple, it would be at least as big as honey too. So I think those are the main notes that people are getting from this whiskey.
Good. So Orthrusk. So put some Orthrusk in your glass. Does anybody know what Orthrusk means?
I'm afraid not.
No, it's from Scottish Gaelic or Gaelic. It means the ford of the Red Stream. So a bridge going over a red stream. It's a very modern distillery built in 1972, and this goes into J&B Rare. So I'll tell you a little bit more about it afterwards, but let's have a minute of you being left alone.
Yeah, what I was wondering, two questions. The Royal Brackla, which one in what blend would you find that? Don't think you said that.
It's funny you should say that. I was thinking, gosh, I can't actually remember.
Isn't it in? Yeah.
Top of my head, I can't remember.
Is it at Chivas Regal?
It may be, but I don't want to say so for sure.
I'll check here if in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. I've got it here.
Oh, that'll give you the answer to life, the universe, and everything. That will.
And then more to the point of what your guys are doing. What intrigued me was the labeling of your bottles. The big number 9 that's on the Royal Brackla. What is that? What is the story behind that?
The number 9 that's the 9th cask that, or sorry, the 9th selection of casks that we bottled. So these are batches of whiskies. So we bottled this batch of Royal Brackla, and that was number 9. So because we've got, I'm just having a look at some other whiskies on the side here that I've got. We've done another Royal Brackla now. That's 750 ml. So that's the American version, and so that was a different batch altogether. That's number 14. So we did 10, 11, 12, 13. Then the 14th batch we did was another Royal Brackla. So we didn't call that number 9, so that if you see a different number on the whiskey, you know it's a different batch. And it may be worth having a close look at the information on the label, because this one here, this number 14 Royal Brackla that we did, was actually an American standard barrel, whereas the one that you're tasting is a hogshead.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be similar, but they won't be the same.
Okay, so it's not that every Royal Brackla will be a number 9. It will be it's batch related.
That's right. It's batch related. So just simply the 9th batch that we did.
Yeah, I just stopped sharing the Mentimeter word cloud because otherwise people would be influenced by what they were seeing. So. Royal Brackla, by the way, is owned by John Dewar and Sons, so it should be Dewar's. I think that it's in.
Yes, that may be right, but I mean the fact that will be correct. But even now you say it, I don't think. Oh yes, that was it. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, I know. Dewar's and Lawson's. Okay. Great resource, this, if people don't know it, the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. All the information you need is in there usually.
Okay, Are you going to share before me, Jeroen?
No, go ahead and start your talk about the Etrusc, and then I'll go back to the word cloud when we're a bit further on.
Fine. Okay. Just an interesting bit of information about this. When it was first released, it was taken out of bourbon and put into sherry for 2 years. This was, I suppose, the first finish, but it never occurred to them to say anything about it. And so no one mentioned it and no one noticed it. And that left the door open for Glenmorangie and Baldini to become known as the pioneers of the finish. And I always think that's quite interesting. They just never mentioned it, they just did it. But this is a very, very different whiskey. The Royal Brackler was very, very fruity, a lot of fruit there, but a lot of elegance, a lot of finesse. It wasn't a big monster. It was a elegant, beautiful whiskey. And generally speaking, that is a sign that you have done two things slowly: the fermentation and the distillation. Now here, you've got an initially heavy character, and they mash more quickly here, and they ferment more quickly. And when you mash quickly, you can draw through solids into the ferment, whereas if you do things a little bit more slowly, you can bring a clearer wort through for fermentation. So when you do that, and particularly if you run the stills quickly as well, you almost cook the solids, and so you start to get a more cereal notes. So this heavy character and some of these malted cereal notes that are coming through are because of this way of production rather than the more gently approach. It would be a lot heavier if they used worm tubs to condense, but they don't. They use shell and tube, and this now actually gives a little bit more, well, actually a lot more copper contact for the vapors. And the more copper you have in contact with the vapors, the more finesse you will end up with. So this balances it. It's a very interesting whiskey here because it starts heavy, but then there is undoubtedly a balance to it, although it's a heavier whiskey, which is why I put it in now. And there's even a little note of citrus, a little fruitiness, particularly on the end. I'm picking up lemon rind, I would say. And so you've got lemony characters, malty characters. It's aromatic, it's heavy, it's cereally. I think it's a very, very interesting whiskey, very different.
Yeah, and it's also it's quite strong. It's at 57.4 at cask strength. But the lemony thing, the lemon you said was when I'm breathing out after having a sip, then the lemon comes through. The freshness, some kind of fresh notes are coming through.
I'm even picking up a little toffee on the start there, which I haven't noticed that before. So
yeah, it's quite fun to see actually that there's a lot of tasting notes coming in, a lot of different ones.
Oh, let's have a look. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll put that on there. There you go. So there's some mint. I think that's the fresh notes that we were talking about. Mint, lemon. That's their pepper. It feels older than 11 years old. I agree. I think it's got a lot more body than you would expect from an 11-year-old whiskey. Yeah, malty. I think all the characteristics that you talked about, Bruce, are mentioned here. So there's the heavy side and also the fresh side. So.
That's right, it's there, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting. Leather and vanilla in the lemon caramel. Those look like bigger letters to me, and I'd have to agree. And they come at different times. They almost come in an order that you wouldn't expect. And I think it's like all of these whiskies. That's why we are interested in them and why we drink them, because they can continue to surprise you. There's always things there that you didn't notice last time, and you find new things. And I like the comment about it being older than an 11-year-old. Mm-hmm. And again, you're looking here at a whiskey that has not been hammered by sherry or by quarter casks or anything. This is it, and it really did stand up to being bottled at cask strength. Some whiskies you try, they're obviously not candidates for a cask strength bottling. But this, because it's got so much body, so much character, and so even at, what is it,
57.4, yeah.
It's showing balance and all of these characteristics. So a very nice, very interesting bottle.
Oh. For the details on the bottle, so distilled in 2007, all of the bottles we're tasting now, all of the single cask bottles actually are bottled on the same date, the 23rd of August of 2018, and so this too was a hogshead.
So Eric's asked a question here. What are the criteria making you choosing for cask strength? Whoops, gone.
Yeah, what are the criteria making you choose for cask strength or reduced ABV?
In a word, balance. You know if it's not balanced, and if it's not balanced and you bottle it at cask strength, it's going to sort of blow your head off. So I think it really is as simple as that. Balance, and it's I know that a lot of whiskey fans, a lot of connoisseurs love to have the whiskey at cask strength, but not every whiskey lends itself to it, and many are vastly improved by being bottled at 46%. But equally, when you taste them, obviously that's at cask strength the first time, or batch strength, and if it's really well balanced, you do make a little note and think, okay, that's a cask strength potential. Whether you then do that or not remains to be seen. But no, I can't improve on that one word answer.
Yeah. The thing is, the question of cask strength or not is kind of like a catch-22 in the whiskey world, I feel, because there's lots of, as you said, lots of whiskey lovers who want everything at cask strength. And the commentary of something that's bottled at lower than that, at 46, for example, is always, oh, I wish I would have been able to taste this at cask strength, and you can't win because
you can't win. But I would just say this: sometimes be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I agree.
Not always. I get it. I know that people are very interested to see things, and for those of you that are really interested, we launched a club the other day called the Peat Elite, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later on. But it's to allow people who really say big things exactly like that the opportunity to get a little bit closer to the distillery and get some little tasting packs in 10 centiliters of things that are not, they've just come out of a sherry cask or they're cask strength or what have you. Now, is it something that you would bottle in that form? Maybe, maybe not. But for those people that wish for, I wish I could see that at cask strength. Well, there you go. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. Really open up let you in and see what's it like. But that we can talk about that later
on. Something I've always wondered is it would be interesting to bottle a cask of whiskey, one cask, and bottle half of it at cask strength and the other half at 46, and sell the two bottles next to each other, for example. But I don't know if it's a good idea or a really bad idea.
I think if it came in a twin pack, it might work, because the thing is, if you are going to add water to your cask strength whiskey and you bring it down to 46%, I guarantee you one thing: we'll do a better job of it in the distillery than you will at home.
Yeah, I think so.
That's for sure. So, right. Let's go. Let's get some. Is it Dufftown next?
The next one is the Dufftown, indeed.
Okay. So let's do that one.
Also, one of these distilleries that you more often see in independent bottlings than in official bottlings.
Yes. Yes. This is also one of the Singleton brands. So
yes.
I don't know if are you sharing your word cloud, or are you just allowing people?
Well, the people can
in?
see it on their phones right now, so
Right.
they can put it in. But let's go back to that when it's filled in a bit
No
more.
problem.
But you go
Okay.
ahead with your talk.
Well, I'll talk, but I won't share just now because I've got a tasting note on here.
Oh yeah.
So I think, did I say this was one of the Singleton brands?
Yes.
And the style produced here has to an extent been dictated to by the needs of the blenders. It was a nutty, full-bodied beast, and that's been just toned down recently. It's become more herbaceous with that toning down. Let's just have a look at it.
This at the moment there's one big word on the screen here, but it's just because only one word has been written down. I'm looking at the word clouds, but you can't see it yet.
Oh, I can't see it. Okay. Oh, I think I know what the word is, but we'll see. We'll see. Because I'll just see it and go, oh yeah, that was it.
Sorry, there's somebody Englishified a word, a Dutch word.
Okay, well that takes some working out, will it?
Yeah. So Bruce, in total, how many bottlings have you done up till now? Because you started, Mossburn started bottling in 2017, if I'm correct?
In terms of the batch numbers, do you mean?
Yes.
I think we're at 20. I think we're at 26.
So let's say about 4 or 5 a year, something like that?
That's about right. We'll be going into the 30s next year for sure.
Okay.
Shall I share?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I can see in the chat that Nick is interested in the experiment with the double bottling of cask strength and 46%. So
good. Oh yes. And there we go. All right. So now I haven't seen it, so I thought the big word was going to be either honey or vanilla.
No, it wasn't that.
No. Oh,
no.
But that's what we got. Zesty nose again, notes of honey and vanilla, which is interesting because the Dufftown originally was a lot nuttier and a lot fuller bodied, but there are notes of almost breakfast cereal in there. Mm-hmm. And then you've got nuts and berries, which is, I suppose, a granola type breakfast cereal, spice, malt, and even just on the end, the merest hint of sesame.
Ooh, sesame.
So, raw, not toasted.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it back to you.
Okay, I'll start sharing the word cloud then, because there's quite a lot of tasting notes again. There you go. So the word that I was talking about is quite a bit smaller now. It was hay, actually. That was the first word that appeared really big fashion. But it's been pushed out by some other words.
Honey and vanilla. There you go.
Honey and vanilla, yeah.
I think some people typed it in to cover up for my embarrassment.
Might be the case.
What have we got? The one on the left there, pie something. Is that
Pijpajon?
Dutchism.
Pijpajon is the I don't know the word in English actually. It's these small onion-like things that look a bit like garlic, garlicky.
Scallion.
Scallops, not scallops.
No. What did you say? Scallion.
Scallion, yes, scallion shallots.
Yes, shallots.
Shallots, not scallops, is what I was trying to say. Scallops. It's a fish. Vanilla, spearmint, shallots, hazelnuts. Very interesting comment.
Yeah. Well, again,
I guess it. Yeah.
Again, I see a lot of things that are quite far away from each other. Like in the last whiskey, the Thrusk was also this combination of the heavier notes and the fresh notes, and I see the same thing going on here.
I was thinking that there are a lot of similarities, and in fact, you could possibly argue that I put these the wrong way around.
Because this one is lighter in alcohol.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry about that.
I know.
But it's not the end of the world. But I think
No.
yes, I think it's they do similar things. They morph between styles. And I'm quite interested. There's a comment in here, herbs. In green there. That's interesting. I always think that modern Dufftown tends to the herbaceous.
Yeah, there's also thyme in there, and I think rosemary. I think I saw. So yeah, this herbiness.
Yes, it goes from that sort of thyme, rosemary through to almost grassiness.
What I also noticed in all the bottlings that we're tasting today is they're all quite light in color. Is that also I think they're all bourbon casks. I'm not sure of that.
I think they're mostly hogsheads, except when we get to the island blend. So, and this was again something else we wanted to start with. You'll see next year we start to change things a little bit. But to start with, we wanted to show, again, this desire for honesty or integrity or information or transparency, whatever you want to call it. And so we were trying to just show them as they were made. We weren't coloring, we weren't chill filtering. So that was our first entry into it. We've now kind of established that. And of course, we've got Torabhaig out there in the marketplace, so the confidence grows a little bit and you can start to move on because you've established a way of behaving. And so you'll start to see some finishes and some casks and some older whiskies coming into play next year from us. And that's because we feel that we've set out our store. People know how we're going to behave. Establish
the brand for a while, and then
but we don't want to be the same. And we've also had 4 years of buying casks that we can finish whiskies in and doing our own thing. So life, as you get older, gets more and more interesting up to a point. And that's certainly true of a young distillery company as well.
Yeah, I saw Christoph raising his hand, so I think he has a question.
Go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, just a quick one. When you decide on doing a batch, how do you decide which whiskies you're gonna bottle? How do you go about it?
When you say which ones, do you mean I've got 8 casks of Royal Brackler, which 4 am I going to do? Or do you mean I'm going to do Royal Brackler?
Yeah, the second one. How do you decide on going for Ben Rins, Royal Brackler, etc.?
Well, the very, very first thing to say is there is a degree of depending what's available to buy. You can't bottle something that you can't buy. So that's the first thing, what's available on the market. Then you have, obviously everything's available, but at a price. So you wouldn't be competitive if you overpaid. So having established what is available to you, you then look at what you've got in stock. You look at your portfolio and you think, right, okay, let's say I've got a lot of light, elegant, floral, fragrant whiskies. I want something with a bit more oomph. I want something with a bit more body. I want something that's nuttier or more herbaceous or meatier, more sulfuric or what have you. And so you would move your direction in there. So that word again that I answered a previous question with balance, you're trying to balance out what you've got because you want to have a nice artist's palette to put in front of people. You want the spectrum, if you can have that. So that, first of all, what is available to buy, because you can't do anything about that, and then balancing up your cellar, and so that you offer a wide, interesting range to your consumer.
Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
And are you involved in the cask selection yourself, Bruce?
I haven't been. I'm one of the blending team, the I think I'm the first substitute. I'm on the bench for sure.
The designated survivor.
Yeah, but no, we in fact, you'll taste one of the ones that I was involved in blending this evening, which is the Island blend.
Okay.
We do taste the casks, and whenever I'm there, we look at different things and we get involved and have opinions on stuff. But no, I don't pick the casks. I don't select the casks. But I am from time to time a member of the blending team.
Just to have a little bit of a clearer view of how big Mossburn is, how many people are involved in Mossburn?
Oh gosh, we're quite small. At the Reivers distillery, which has not got any whiskey for sale at the moment and won't have until 2024, but we do all of our bottling there and all of our reduction and all of our blending and so on. That all happens there, and we have got 5 people there full time. Plus we have the whiskey maker, Neil Matteson, and we have other employees who are out and about around the place, of which I am one. So I would say that we were about 8-9 people there. At Torabhaig, that's quite a lot more. We've got 9 distillers. We have a tour guide team, but they're not all full time. And we have a couple of managers there as well, and a distillery manager. So I would say they're probably, if you add up man hours, we've got about 15 full-time people up there. And then in the office, we have finance people and so on and so forth. So where are we? 23. We're under 30.
Okay.
But we're growing, so we're going to be adding. So next year, ask me again. I'll say under 40.
That's pretty good. I mean,
well, sorry, what did you say?
I said that's pretty good actually. I mean that for me, I that's not small anymore. I mean, that's 30 people. You know, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
Of course, you have 2 distilleries to run, and then the distilling and the blending business. So yeah.
And it's a patient person's game. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get made overnight. And if you want to have 10, 12, 15, 18, 21, 25-year-old, it means you can't sell it all tomorrow. So you have to be very, very patient.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another question I had. How do you manage market expectations? Because obviously whiskey is very popular right now with huge volumes everywhere. But how do you manage volumes in 10, 20 years?
In 10, 20 years, absolutely. Well, you plan it before you even open the door the first time. So a spreadsheet that would just make your eyes water in terms of how many barrels a day, where are those barrels going to go, and what are they destined to become? So every single barrel it's not a barrel that leaves the distillery, it's a tanker, goes into barrels, but every barrel that gets made every single day, every single week, what is it destined for? And so, it looks like a giant staircase, the spreadsheet, because that's how it's going to go. But it's really, really important that you do this, because the early releases, you have to know where you're putting them in the aging cellar, because they're quite small batches to start with. So they need to be very carefully placed in a similar sort of atmosphere, because I'm sure you've been to tastings of American whiskey where they talk to you about the ricks, and you've got, is it 9 stories or however many it is, and the ones at the top very hot, the ones at the bottom never going to make great bourbon, the ones in the middle fantastic, etc. Now we don't have that, because we don't have their climate variations, nor do we have all of those ricks all over the land in Kentucky, but we do. But that is an impact that happens anywhere in the world to a greater or lesser extent. So we have to know where the Alt Gleann that you're going to taste this evening, those barrels have to be in a pretty similar place to one another, or you're not going to be consistent in your batches. So long before we start, you've got a long spreadsheet of what you're going to make and what those barrels are destined for and where they're going to go. So it's a finance person's job.
I saw Christoph's eyes lighting up because he's in banking, so he loves spreadsheets and
No,
finance.
don't mention the wall.
Yeah. Is that the city of what is that? New York behind you, is it?
Yeah, supposedly.
Like, supposedly. It's like the Late Show or something.
Yeah.
But if you're into spreadsheets, if you're a finance person, essentially we would explain what we were trying to accomplish, and then somebody with that skill set would model that for us. And it does look like a giant staircase.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is actually. You look at it, you go, to start with, it's just, and slowly you think, oh yes, that's right. Yes, I get that. But we want a 10-year-old in 2028. That is a tall order. It may be 2029 by the time we actually get it out there. But if you're going to do that, you have to know on day one where those barrels are going to start going.
Yep, sure. I think the next whiskey we're going to taste is the Ben Rinnes. I already put up the word cloud. There was a question, so I just say that so people can start tasting. But there was another question from Nick in the chat. I think this is about the selection. How do you know what are the key pointers for the decision, or is this a secret?
Sorry, what decision is that? What are the key pointers for the decision on what? Are we back to the cask strength, or?
I think it's about Nick. You can explain yourself, I think.
Yeah. How do you decide we're gonna keep this whiskey for X years, or we're gonna bottle it much sooner?
Yes. If you don't taste every barrel, we'd be dead by now. But you do some spot checks on things, and you have a look and see if they're behaving the way you think they're going to behave. If they're not, you put them back and leave them alone. But you have a pretty good idea in terms of, let's say for the sake of argument, we had an old barrel that had been used 2 or 3 times. You probably wouldn't waste time looking at that for 10 or 15 years. If you've got a first fill bourbon barrel, you might want to have a look after 3 years, 4 years. Okay, how's this performing? If you had a Pedro Jimenez butt or a seasoned American standard barrel with Pedro Jimenez, you might want to look at that fairly regularly. So it depends what it is. Experience will tell you that a 4th fill isn't something that you need to worry ahead with for the next 10 years. So those are sort of key pointers. The key pointers, how do you know? Again, balance. Is it a secret? Not really a secret. It's just an imperfect sort of science, but we have a good idea what's going to happen. But you keep an eye on, a bit like an auditor doing an audit, you spot check. If everything's perfect in your spot checks, it stands to reason that everything else is going to fit into that kind of thing. If you start seeing a few problems, well, now you start pulling other things and having a look at those as well.
So you mentioned the word imperfect science. I know there's a lot of research going on in the whiskey world now about maturation and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of just nosing, tasting, and knowing what your trade is about. How big is the science part in your operation?
Well, it's bigger and bigger because the scientists get better and better at it.
Yep.
No, I would say today it's a very large part of it, and computers, of course, play a role in things as well. The world is moving on, but don't ever think that the artisan, the nose, and the palate aren't playing a part. They're playing a part at the distillery at Torabhaig every single day, and it's the one's the backup for the other. So you know what should be happening at this moment. Well, is it? Yes, it is. Okay, good. Oh no, it isn't. What do you think? Let's leave that a little minute or two longer, or what have you. So the artisan is still very much at work, but they've got backups, and they can go off for their tea and their coffee for the next 10 minutes, knowing that things are going to be okay, and then they can come back and right now we should be cutting. Should we? Yes, we should.
Yeah.
So hand in hand. Right,
There's
moving on here, Ben Rinnes.
Yeah, Ben Rinnes. There's a lot of tasting notes coming in, but I'll let you talk about it first.
To you.
I think it's better if you talk about it first, and then we go to the.
No problem. Okay, so this is one of Scotland's bigger beasts. If you have a think about some of those guys, Dal Huan, Craig Ellachie, Cragganmore, Mortlach, almost designed to be sherry casked. This is this used to be quite complicated, Ben Rinnes, mixing double and triple distillation, but it's been simplified. So they keep the worm tubs here cold. They reduce the copper contact. It's still, without doubt, a meaty, savoury whiskey. It does take well to sherry, no doubt about that. But this hogshead bottling is a rare opportunity to look beneath the canvas. The fact that they keep the worm tubs so cold really helps get this big character. So if you run the worm tubs warm, it won't condense as quickly, so the vapors spend longer in contact with the copper. If you run them cold, it will condense quickly. You get less time with the copper, and therefore you get these more almost, let's call it positive sulfur. They're bigger in body. This is quite an idiosyncratic malt. And again, big demand from blenders around Scotland. So
yeah, it's got a lot of character, the Ben Rinnes in general. So and it's a very recognizable Ben Rinnes, I think.
It is a recognizable Ben Rinnes. It's exactly what it is.
Christoph says, I like this better than I like the Fauna and Flora Ben Rinnes. So better, very good stuff. Let's put up the word cloud, because it's quite interesting again how many tasting notes are being mentioned here. So these are tasting notes from just about 11, 12 people. So this is
sulfur, spot on. Black pepper, completely agree. Honey, again, yes, it's there, isn't it? It's undeniably there.
Yeah.
Spiciness, yes. Can't read that one. Old leather, yes. Yeah.
Classic Ben Rinnes.
The faint sulfur, isn't it? Full-bodied, without a doubt. There's nothing. It's not even medium full. This is a big bodied whiskey.
Again, maybe for the details, it's bottled at cask strength, 55.8%.
Thank you.
It's 11 years old, so it's still 2007, and it was also a hogshead.
So, and like you say, very, 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 very clearly Ben Rinnes, and not being masked by anything. Again, makes it very, very interesting whiskey to look at. Breakfast tea.
Breakfast tea. Yeah, there's also sea salt I see, and some spiciness, grapes. I like what you say about not being masked, because if you go to one of those other beasts like Mortlach, I actually like bourbon matured Mortlach a lot. Not only the sherry beasts that are so often named.
No, Mortlach really does lend itself to sherry. I mean, they're almost designing it to go into sherry, and I think the Arbalua, and they are, they're wonderful for that. But just once in a while, it's nice to just have a look underneath that and see, okay, what was there before that happened? Because they've got to be big beasts to take that amount of sherry. And it's very nice to have a look at them like this. And that,
what I like about, so yeah, go ahead, Bruce, sorry.
No, not at all. I was just saying this is, again, highlighting why you might go to an independent bottler alongside the distillery bottlings. Sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just going to say that in this word cloud, it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of words and not many big words. There's a lot of different things going on in this whiskey, and that's what I like about whiskeys in general. That there's a lot going on, and it's not really, you can not really pinpoint one thing in this, I think.
Absolutely. What's Zizut?
Sea salt.
Sea salt. Ah.
There's something maritime. Somebody's getting in here.
Okay, I'll take back over if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. There's a question while you're doing that, Bruce, from Cyrus. Considering you were talking about balance earlier, could you give this a balance rating on 10, or talk about the balance in general?
All my whiskies get 10. No, that's not true. Could I give it a balance out of 10? Oh, let me just read that chat again. Where's it gone? I've lost it. Could you tell me that? Oh, here we go. Chat. Considering you were talking about balance earlier, could you give this a balance rating on 10 or talk about balance in general? Yes. Well, let's have another look.
It obviously doesn't have to be like a mark on 10, but I was just wondering about how balanced this is, considering it's so full-bodied and so just very Benrinnes, you know?
For me, it's a 7 or an 8, if you want. Actually, do you know what? It's actually at least an 8, because the alcohol, when you sometimes a drink comes at you in 2 or 3 hits. To me, that's not balanced. You get a load of sweetness, like a spoon of syrup up front, and then nothing happens, and then the alcohol comes afterwards. That is imbalanced and disjointed. This doesn't do that. This has a sort of a feeling of it being a complete sphere. Is it absolutely perfect, the greatest thing ever? No, it's not a 250-pound bottle of whiskey. But the balance is good because you've got a lot of character. The alcohol doesn't overpower the character, and the character doesn't overpower the alcohol. So that is how I look at how I would look at balance. And I would give it, okay, let's give it an 8 out of 10. But I'm kind of cynical about the sort of Robert Parker scoring system because what's the difference between 8 and 8.5 and 7 and so on? Very,
exactly.
very tricky. But
thank you for that very good answer.
Good is the answer to your question. Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly what I was looking for. Just some general ideas behind the balance here. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so am I sharing? Yes. Still light in color after maturation in hogsheads. Weighty, slightly malty nose, vanilla hints, honeyed cereal notes, gentle oak, structure, malty, honeyed cereal character pervades. But there was a lot of really good tasting notes in your word cloud there. I thought very, very good.
There's a knowledgeable audience tonight. They're doing good.
Good. Excellent. Okay, what have we got? What's coming next? Island.
I think it's the island now. Yeah.
It is. Okay, so now you've got to be careful because I got involved in this one.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I was very much looking forward to tasting this because I'm not the typical whiskey drinker. I love blended stuff.
Well, I do think it's a shame this blended word is so difficult.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with blending. I mean, all the greatest wines in the world, Chateau Lafite Rothschild, Chateau Mouton Rothschild, Chateau Latour, Chateau Margaux, Chateau Haut-Brion, they're blends. They're blends of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc and Merlot from different parts of their vineyard, and they blend them, and they're the better for it. I think blend has got a bad word because if you do it on an enormous scale, it stands to reason that you will get lowest common denominator. If, on the other hand, you blend on a very, very small scale, it stands to reason that you should make something where the sum is greater than the total of the parts. So don't be afraid of a blended malt. That's not to say you have to like every blended malt or every blend that you try, but don't let the word put you off because there is nothing wrong with the word. And most single malts are marriages, which is another word for blend.
I completely agree. So I'm also on this quest to remove this bias on the word blend.
Yes, yeah. Please don't let it put you off. Okay.
The word cloud is up, guys. If you want to share some tasting notes, yeah, let's listen to Bruce about this.
I am going to share the screen here with you, actually, because I'm not going to give anything away. So. Okay. Right. So I told you about our vintage casks and the view that we had about integrity, if you like, honesty, transparency, information, and letting people see whiskey for what it was to start with a view to moving on as we grew older. The other thing we wanted to experiment with was wood. And you can see some coopers hard at work here at the Speyside cooperage. And what they were doing for us was they were making some hybrid casks for us. So we had 2 sets of hybrid casks set up for our Speyside blend and our Island blend. We're tasting the Island blend today. So the whiskies themselves started off life in refill barrels. And so we blended for the Speyside and for the Island to start with about 4 distilleries. We blended them together and then we put them into these newly made hybrid casks. Now, the hybrid cask for the Island was first fill bourbon casks, but we took the, let me get my pointer out again, but we took the heads off the first fill bourbon casks, and we replaced those with virgin European oak at heavy toast, and then put them back on. And we put the blended Island whiskies into these casks for between 9 and 18 months for a finish, if you like. And then we took them out and reblended them again, or took portions of them out and reblended them again. And so why did we do this? Well, for the Speyside, which was actually an Oloroso butt and virgin American oak at heavy char, we were trying to richen up, biggen up, highlight the characteristics that were inherent with the Speyside. But with the Island, the one that you've got now, we were trying to bring some finesse and some elegance to something that might otherwise have been a little bit rustic. So it was smoky, but we wanted to just put a little shine on that, a little polish, a little subtlety. And so the European oak will do that for you. Virgin European oak will definitely do that, but not too much. And first fill bourbon is a wonderful vehicle for maturing whiskey. So that was what we did here. I'll leave you to put your words up in the cloud. Do you want to share a second, Jeroen?
There you go. There were some things coming in. Some. Oh yeah, there's quite a lot coming in now. So I'll share that. There you go. So we've got yeah, the obvious ones: smoked peat. There's some things like that going on. The sea and seaweed, sea salt. So there's something maritime going on in there too.
Very maritime,
for some
without
people.
a doubt, yes.
Yeah.
Smoked, sea salt, honey. Yes. And this is what I love about this. This is one of my favorite whiskies that we've done, because I love the honeyed bed that the smoke lies on, and the peat is floral and it's fragrant. It's not the most medicinally peated. Vanilla, yes. Oak, yes. Subtle smoke, yes. Seaweed, yes. Delicate, yes. All of these things. This is a well. Now, where is the question, Cyrus? This gets a really big score in the balance department from me.
I agree. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. This is. And this is not the world's most expensive whiskey. This is so the great thing about it is it's really good, but it's we have a television program here on a Saturday night called Match of the Day. It's the Premiership football. This is my Match of the Day whiskey.
Oh yeah. This is in Belgium. We have a term for that. It's called a card player's whiskey.
A card player's whiskey. Yes.
which is a whiskey you can just sip on, drink, and it goes on. It's perfectly fine. It's very good, but you can keep on drinking it, and it will never disappoint you.
That's right. And at the same time, you don't have to sit there talking about it for hours either. If
Yeah, you can just keep on playing cards. I mean,
exactly. So card playing whiskey. Okay, I'll remember that.
Yeah. A tasting note that intrigues me is Mexican beans. I don't know who put it in, but Mexican beans is a very intriguing tasting note.
It certainly is. Are you talking about reef-fried beans or? Let me get my screen back up. I'm losing the screen here.
If the person that put in Mexican beans wants to elaborate, you're very welcome to.
Oh, it's there. Oh, I see what's happened. There we go. Okay. Share screen.
And the thing is, it's very nice to see these comments, because I know the prices of these bottles, and everybody's going to be very happy when they see the prices, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my slideshow? There's my slideshow. Oh, Lord.
Don't worry about it.
There we
Evelyn
go.
says,
Right.
Evelyn says this is my favorite so far. So
Very nice. Yes, I love it. It's unpretentious. It does everything you'd ask it to do. I think it's really, really good. So I've got seductive clove, potpourri spice, oak finesse, tannin spice, heathery dried fruit, pepper, fragrant smoke, and a light honeyed note. What more do you want? Okay, drum roll, please,
Okay.
Maestro.
Torabhaig, there we go. I don't have a drum roll programmed in, but let's go on to the Torabhaig.
Why not? Why not? Okay, so this is what we bought. Now I have to tell you, guys, you could stand me there from now until the end of time, and it would not cross my mind to make a distillery out of it. So I have to give a big round of applause to whoever thought this would make a nice distillery. Well, I know who it was. It was Sir Ian Noble, who was the owner of this land on the Isle of Skye. It's a part of Skye called the Elan Arman Estate. We were fortunate enough to be able to buy this with planning permission to turn this old cattle steading into a distillery. So the cattle would come and feed in this. Oh, where's my little laser pointer goes away in this area here. So there's a good view of it. Now, this is a very, very old building. This dates back at least 200 years. But some of the stonework that built it 200 years ago was taken from a derelict castle called Castle Camas, which is just in sight of the distillery. And that dates back to the 1400s. So this is an ancient building. And it is a listed building, which is protected by law. And so therefore, when we acquired this, you couldn't just knock it down. You had to restore it. And so the height of the building, we couldn't go higher than the apex of the roof here. The height, the width, the length were all established. So whilst we did work very closely with the coppersmith for scythes of Rothes in the production, the design of our stills, there was a limit. And that limit was quite clear that those stills had to fit in that building. And so therefore, a part of what we make is being dictated to us by this building. This building talks to us through the centuries in the whiskey that you will have in your glass, or can even put in your glass right now if you would like to. And I love that part of our story. I think that's wonderful. There's so many things from so many years playing a part in what you're now tasting. And that is a fantastic thing to be able to talk about, to know when you're drinking the whiskey. And I hope that you always think of that when you taste the whiskey.
I think it's also a bit testament to living on an island.
Yes.
Like you have to adapt to the island. I mean, you can't go anywhere else because the sea is all around you. So it's the same thing, basically.
Absolutely. The island will not give in to you totally. It will dictate. But that became this. And there, in fact, you can see that is the derelict castle. that was fought over by the MacLeods and the MacDonalds for quite a long time, clan warfare in the 1400s and 1500s. Just so you know where you are, that over here, that's mainland Scotland that you're looking back on over there. One of these hills over here somewhere is the Croch na Murnia, which means the Hill of Peat, and you'll find out why I'm telling you that in a minute. To the left of the picture, as you look at it here, are two what we call in Scotland burns. You would call them maybe streams or brooks, and they are the Alt Gleann and the Alt Breach, and they are our water sources. What you're looking at here is a cooling pond, and that's because when we take the water, when we put the water back into the burns, we're not allowed to put it back more than 1 degree centigrade than we took it out. So this cools it down before we return it. There's another picture of the same thing, and there's a pretty picture. One of the things we found when we were draining the swamp was this water wheel, which has now been re-established and is functioning. It doesn't do very much, but it's nice to have it. And now we go inside the distillery. So I told you that the roof, the stills had to fit. Well, as you can see, they do, but only just. That's because we took everything that we could possibly get out of that building. You can see this design work on the building here. That's because the roof comes off. That's how the stills got in. And one day, 25 years from now, is how they'll come back out again when they need to be replaced. So here was the distillery. So what we were going to make, what were we going to do with it? And in many respects, we wanted to reflect the Isle of Skye itself. The Isle of Skye is very beautiful, but it's not beautiful in a sort of Caribbean island sort of a way, soft and gentle and sea gently lapping and what have you. It's beautiful in a very robust, hardy sort of a way. And so the Isle of Skye became our muse for what we were going to make. And the words elegantly robust started to be bandied about. So what did this mean? What did this mean in whiskey terms? And what it meant to us was that we would bring in the barley very, very high in-grain phenolics, 55, 60, 70, 80, 85. But then we would look to tame it, and we would make this an elegant style of whiskey. So we ran long fermentations in these wooden washbacks here. And then we ran long, slow distillations in these copper stills, maximizing the copper contact, the copper contact with the vapors. And we had shell and tube condensers, which we're able to run in a way that further maximize that copper contact. And so elegant and robust. And that morphed into well-tempered peat. So we were tempering the peat. Now I know that doesn't translate maybe so well, but it was a case of taming the beast that we brought into the distillery. It stands to reason, of course, that on day one we didn't get it right immediately. It wasn't perfect. It was good. It was very good. We were very, very pleased. But it took about 9 months of experimenting to finally think, right, that's it. That's what we're looking to make. That's what we want to become the 10-year-old. And so we've got a lot of this, these casks put aside, and we thought that the consumer might like to come on this journey with us. The consumer doesn't often get the opportunity to look at a new distillery on an island that hasn't had a new distillery for nearly 200 years. So this was interesting. You come on this journey 4.5 years after we went on it, and longer as time goes on, because that's how long it takes to make whiskey. But we have a little plan here, and that plan is that, well, we've started it. You've had the 2017. You're now into the Alt Gleann. Alt Gleann. So if you remember, I said that was one of our water sources just to the left of the distillery. In English, that would mean the valley stream. Then in 2024, Croch Pneumonia, the Hill of Peat, and that will probably have some sherry casks in it. That's what we're looking at the moment. And then the Alt Gleann, our other water source. And then here we're looking at maybe introducing some Madeira cask at this point. And those are already lying down. So we will see. I don't know. The thing about a long journey, which a journey to a 10-year-old is that you have diversions, you have roadblocks, you have to stop. Things don't quite go according to plan, but you do get there in the end. And that's what this does. So I don't promise this journey, but that's the plan.
So, and these legacies number 1 to 4 are all limited editions then, or?
They will limited editions. Yes, I suppose they are. They're not that limited because Alt Gleann's going to be around for 2.5 years.
Yeah. So you'll make new batches of Alt Gleann.
6,
next year.
2, 4, 6, 2, 4. Yes, 6 batches in total are planned.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I said to whoever asked me earlier, Christoph, I think, we have to be real careful where we put those casks for the Alt Gleann because they have to taste the same. So we can't just put them anywhere. And then when we get to Croch Pneumonia, that will be a bit older than Alt Gleann. Alt Gleann's a bit older than 2017 and so on. And we will slowly get to 10-year-old. That's what they're going to look like. Admittedly, the color of the whiskey is whatever the artist put in there, but that's the labels. And so I think you should now get it in your glass. I'm going to take that down because that's the 2017 tasting note.
Well, people are already tasting it, Bruce. There's a lot of tasting notes coming in, so you can't keep them patient. No.
Sorry. So let's have a look at the Alt Gleann. Okay. One of the things I'm really pleased about is that we didn't resort to quarter casks or anything like that to try and just make it drinkable more quickly. We just let nature take its course in the barrels that we were going to use all the way. But because we've got high cut points and because we've been so slow in the ferment and so slow in the distillation, high cut points, as I said, we have produced a very soft, elegant whiskey. The peat is floral, it's sweet, it's not medicinal, and this isn't a big Ben Rinnes type whiskey, for example. So the Isle of Skye as the muse has become a reality in the glass, I think.
What I like a lot about it is that I mean, you can disagree with me, but this is very spirit driven. This is very much about what the spirit is like, how the spirit was distilled, and what the real character of the spirit is coming through here.
Yes, it is. I think that you saw that even more in the first one. And as we move on, I mean, this is a very interesting whiskey. It's almost going to. Can I mention a tasting note or not?
Can I share the tasting notes?
You go ahead. Let me stop sharing. There you go. Screen's yours.
Yeah. There they are. Lots of them here again.
Smoke, peat, young, candied orange. Yes, tobacco.
Big one is peat and smoke.
Yeah.
Oily, I can see there. Young, sweet peat again. Very smooth. Grassy in a positive way. Sorry, I'm developing a Scottish R now.
Sweet
when I'm talking.
I like that.
Tobacco leaves, creamy, candied orange, sea salt. Lots of stuff going on again.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a lot of complexity.
I think you're muted, Bruce.
No, I'm not muted.
We can't hear you. Well, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can anybody else hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, they can hear me. Jeroen, can you hear me?
Can the rest hear Bruce, or is it just me?
Could somebody put it?
We can hear him.
You can hear Bruce. Okay, go ahead. Then it's just me then.
I'll take back control if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. It's probably just me.
No problem.
There you go. I can hear you again.
Oh, okay, good. It's probably when you were sharing your screen.
Yeah, probably like that. Yeah.
Okay, so what I thought I would do is I put the tasting note of the 2017, the previous one, up here because I wanted to show you the difference. So with the 2017, soft, sweet, honeyed, fragrant peat, upfront coal tar, good peat, underlying creaminess, coal tar, fragrant peat, honeyed, repeat, repeat, repeat. So it's not to say it was a bad whiskey, but it's a young whiskey. The complexity hadn't started to come to the party. But now with the Alt Gleann, fragrant peat on the nose, subtle hints of barley sugar. So now the sweetness has taken on a greater complexity, and honey, which we had already, combined with a savory smoky note. It's almost going to smoked scallop, smoked oysters. Not quite, it didn't quite get there, but it's heading in that direction. Soft, creamy palate with a light, sweet, almost bonfire-like smokiness. So more complexity. Coal tar, same as the last one. Undertones of oily brown with floral hints, beguiling sweet spice notes, subtle, long finish. So the house style is starting to become apparent. It's not there yet. We've got a long way to go. But you can see certain things staying the same, but you can also see complexity building. And so that's very, very interesting. And there's a few things that are different here. If you go back to this one, 55 to 60 parts per million in the barley, 77 this time. If you go back to this one, 16 residuals, 17 residuals. So that's funny. How did that happen? Well, we moved the cut points higher. So you can't just say, oh, well, it's 1 part per million different, can you? Although that's what it looks like. But you're actually measuring different families of phenolics. So the whole thing has moved on a level here. But what I'm pleased to see is that there is a beginnings of a house style with the Isle of Skye as our muse. And you have the step up in terms of the complexity. So Alt Gleann is definitely building on the 2017, which is everything we could have asked for. So we're very happy about it. So we can keep talking, but all I've got to say is tap and lave, which translates as thank you.
Okay, perfect. I think there's probably some questions from people here. I'm going to put on in the Mentimeter the next and the last slide, and there you can actually score each whiskey on a scale from 1 to 10, which for me is less to my taste is at the far left end, and then a clear winner is the far right end. And if you all do this, we can get a general idea of which whiskey you liked the most of tonight. This is of course always very personal and very individual, but it gives a kind of an idea about what you guys are thinking. So there's a little bit more time for questions for Bruce if you want to. Eric is saying, it's just a comment actually. He appreciated the inaugural release, liked the second release a lot, and he'll become a fan if Legacy 3 consolidates his feelings. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah. I actually like this a lot too. I mean, it's not only today I've tasted it because I had the bottle in house, and I think it's the only bottle in Belgium. I think it might have arrived at Nectar already, but it's not being
the first. One there was the first bottle in Belgium, but there are now other bottles in Belgium.
Yeah. They're being distributed as we're talking about it. But you all actually had a sort of a an avant-première tonight. Is Rens there? Rens. Well,
just turned up. When he comes in, just say bye-bye.
Yeah. Just you all know, Rens is from the Nectar, the importer, and actually he ran past my window as we were having the tasting. So he said hi about an hour ago. So hi, Rens.
Just arrived home. Hi all.
Yeah, we actually just finished the tasting. So we just finished
everybody. Yeah. No, we're joking, Rens. We're joking.
Hi Bruce, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, we just had the Torabhaig. People are scoring all the whiskies now, And we're waiting for some more questions if anybody has them. So. And then, of course, after everybody has, if you have the scores and the kind of the idea of tonight, I'll share the link in the chat with to the website where you can, if you want to, order some one or more of these bottles, and we'll get them to you so you can enjoy them even more at home. But I'll do that after we have a good idea of the scores and your idea of the whiskies. I think, Bruce, you explained everything perfectly because there are no questions, I think.
I hope so. I hope I haven't sent everybody to sleep instead, but yes.
No. they are not asleep because they're scoring the whiskey, so they
Okay,
are probably
fine.
busy with that. So
No, it was good. Do you share the screen of the scores in a moment? Do you? Or?
I'll do that in a moment. Yeah, I had one more question. So you also have the Reivers distillery in the Lowlands. What are the plans with that?
Well, the plans at the moment are that we have a hybrid still in there, so it won't make single malt whiskey at the moment. We are distilling rye in there, so it'll be the Reivers rye. Reivers, I don't know if you know, but what would it be now? Ending around about 1603, there was a situation where the King of Scotland and the King of England needed to protect the border, but all the people living around there did quite a good job of fighting each other, so nobody wanted to pass through anyway. So it became a very lawless society, and they allowed these border reivers to get on with fighting one another, stealing from one another, and generally making the place somewhere nobody wanted to go. So they kind of turned a blind eye to it. But when Scotland and England became Britain, now they became an embarrassment to the king, because so they got rid of he got rid of the reivers by either hanging them, sending them to Northern Ireland, or deporting them to America. But some of these guys are their descendants became very, very famous. One of the descendants of one of the deportees to the United States of America became the first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Okay. Another one was President Richard Nixon, Billy Graham, the preacher, Lyndon B. Johnson, another president. Wow. They must have passed on some competitive genes. Yeah. So this area, the borders of England and Scotland, the borderers, the reivers, it's a famous old story, and the distillery is called the Reivers. Okay. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting place. It's not going to be your traditional Scottish single malt distillery for now, but there are other plans, but nothing about those just yet. There's a long way off.
Looking very much forward to seeing what they are up to. A couple questions in the chat by now. Nick is asking, yeah, you hinted at this the peat club for the raw stuff in the beginning of the tasting. Something special you were working on, and you were going to expand on that, but
yes, no. If anybody wants to join the Peat Elite, they log on to the Torabhaig website. And you can find all the details there. So this is a members-only club, and it entitles you to some private tastings, some little bits of tasting stock, some individual bottles, and that's something that you can certainly have a look at. No, it's not really started properly yet. We have a few hundred members already. Which is a very, very nice start, but it's not limited yet. And we're also going to run some events, some dinners. So the first dinner is in Edinburgh next month. The second one is in Paris at the same time as the Paris Whiskey Live show. And we've got one in London in October planned. And so on and so forth. But if you want to have a look at the Peat Elite, then please do. Peat Elite is the members. It's not us. We're not saying we're the elite. That's you, the people who are that interested in peat, that you want to join a club and get some very interesting things. So just log on to the website and look at the club. You've got all the details there that you would want.
Yeah, I think you'll have some new members after tonight. So
that would be nice. I'm afraid the one downside of the membership of the club is that you get to talk to me again. So you get question and answer sessions on your whiskies. But apart from that, I recommend it.
I don't think people will see that as a problem, Bruce. So another question from Cyrus, and then after that, I'll go to the scoring sheet. What was your thought process in deciding the order of the whiskies we tasted tonight?
Well, clearly it was flawed because the Dufftown was in the wrong place. Light, fruity, elegant first, spicy, nutty second, meaty, savory third, smoky fourth. That sort of concept. Simple as that. I don't think I quite got it right, to be honest with you. I think if I was doing it again, I'd put the Dufftown second and the Orthrusk third. So that was I think that was a mistake.
You can't really make mistakes, but I can agree that it would probably build up a bit more to also the strength of the Orthrusk and the cask strength one.
Yes, No, I think it was possibly a mistake. I mean, no one's crying. It's not the end of the world, and nobody died.
No, but it's not. It's kind of an invitation to do it again, but in a different order.
Different order.
Yeah. All right, guys. If there's any more questions, now is the time, because I'm going to the end of the tasting. I'll share with you what you guys thought of the whiskies of tonight. There you go. So you can see they all score quite high, actually, about 7 to 8. You can see in the waves behind the scores that there's quite a lot also higher scores of 8 to 9 for all of them. But the winners, if you can call that, of tonight are the blended malt, the Island, and the Torabhaig. So that's something to take away, maybe. Just for you, so you know, I'll make a PDF of all the tasting notes and the word clouds you saw tonight and send them out to you guys, so you can look at them again, or you can just discard them if you want to. But I will send them out to you. And then I'll share with you in the chat right now the link to our website. If you do want one or more of these bottles, you can order them there, and you will be very happy to see that the most expensive bottle of tonight will cost you only 63 euros. So these are very, very well priced whiskies for the quality they offer. I think the blended malt is at 39 euros, which is like a bargain, if you ask me.
I'll put the price up if you want.
Don't tell Bruce, but they're too cheap. No, these are really good whiskies, very good value for money whiskies, I think. So if you do want one, don't hesitate. And otherwise, you can also go to any good liquor shop in your neighborhood and get these, because I do think that they deserve to be on your shelf. Bruce, I think that there's no more questions from our audience at this time. So I think I'm going to go onwards, and thank you very much for your time and your hosting of this tasting. It was a privilege to be one of the first to offer the Torabhaig to the Belgian tasters. So I was very happy to be able to do that. And I'm also very happy that we decided to expand this into a bigger tasting than just the Torabhaig. So is there anything else you would want to add as a last word to our Belgian viewers at this moment?
No, just thank you very much. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your interest in us, in Mossburn Torabhaig. And it was, I hope you enjoyed it. I did. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a nice evening.
I think we will send people into the night with the remains of whatever they have left in their glasses. And I'll close down the official part of the tasting right now. So Bruce, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. I'll stay here for a little bit longer if anybody wants to chat a bit more to me. So thank you all, guys. And also, I'll stop the recording now. So from now on, you can talk freely. Bye, everyone.